morning to those of you who are with us live today. You're at our Leaders Edge Wednesday training. This one's going to be maybe a little bit less intense than some of the other topics that we've covered along the way. Sometimes the technology things that we do on Wednesdays can feel a little bit like, okay, I need a nap this afternoon when we're done. Today is really going to be more about, I think, plugging into two things. A lot of the sort of things that we know that maybe we just don't pay attention to all the time, sort of the obvious parts of our business that we may shy away from. But this is also about giving ourselves permission to be creative and dive in and think about out of the box ways that we can get in front of people and let them know that we're in the real estate business. So today we're going to talk about hosting a successful event. Okay. If you have any questions, we're typically a small group, so feel free to unmute and jump in at any time, because that's a lot easier than me trying to hunt down who maybe has a hand raised or is dropping a comment in the chat box. So let's get started. And as we do, I just remind everybody, if you could just maybe put yourself on mute. So let's talk about when we say hosting a successful event, that sounds kind of big and overwhelming and unpleasant, and maybe a lot of work to go into something that you're not quite sure is going to be good, bad, or ugly for your business, right? Well, here's the deal. What we want to talk about first is that when we say hosting, I want to get your mind in a place where you're talking about taking action on something, that you're not going to sort of stand back and not get into the game because you're nervous about how you'll perform. Instead, you're going to think about, what action can I take that maybe is a little bit out of my comfort zone, or maybe it's something new that I've never done before, but is a baby step. It doesn't have to be huge or nothing. I hope that you'll see today, through some of the creative and brainstorming ideas that we throw around, that there's a lot of middle ground with participation in events. And here's the thing. I love this Chinese proverb: be not afraid of growing slowly, be afraid only of standing still. So our goal today is to get you out of standing still mode. If you are not in the practice of hosting events or participating events or getting yourself out into the public, I hope that today you'll start to change that and incorporate some event activities into your business plan and into your, end of 23 and 2024 schedule. The only unsuccessful event that you have is the one that you didn't have. Meaning every event that you have, just think of every open house you've ever hosted. You learn, even if you only have one person show up or no people show up, you're going to learn something. What you liked about your setup, what you didn't like, what you could improve on advertising, how you can better manage traffic flow. If there's not an opportunity to say that was a great success, there will certainly at least be opportunity to identify ways that you can do better and feel better about the process going forward. So that's why I say we're going to start now. We're going to talk about how you can incorporate events into your business. If you don't, what I would love for you to do right now is go and find a piece of scrap paper, a tablet, a notebook, something where you can start to write down some ideas that hopefully will pop into your mind as we go through some of our slides today. Okay, so let's talk about, when we say hosting a successful event, let's think through a few things. Okay, and it's important that you have, as I take you through these slides, the idea here, that the underlying sort of subtle code is that you can't just pop something up and expect it to go the way that you hope it will go. You can't sort of hold your breath, cover your eyes, and wish for the best. There needs to be a certain amount of planning and thought so that you can get the most out of your effort, your dollar, your partnership if you're working with other people too. So first thing that you want to do, let's say in your mind that you had to start to draft out what your first or next event might look like for your business. Okay. I want you to think about what your goal might be in that event. If you've never done an event before, maybe your goal, and there's no wrong answer here, but maybe your goal is to just get the nerves off of your mind, just sort of get that first one, that first notch on your belt so that you can then get more comfortable and get over the fear. Okay. Maybe your goal is to educate And it could be educating different components of society, whether it's, buyers, sellers, a certain segment of the population. Do you want to bring knowledge and information to people? Maybe your goal is to network or just have a social event, right? And then there's always the opportunity too to show appreciation. And appreciation could be not just for your past clients or the people that you've worked with, but maybe you're showing appreciation for things that are happening in your community, for people, for businesses, for charities that you value in your community. So your goal might be appreciation, something to think about. So that's the first thing as you start to brainstorm on your notepad. The next thing I want you to think about is who your audience would be. So if your goal is to educate, who do you want to educate? Who do you want to attract into your event? If your goal is to show appreciation, again, who do you want to appreciate, number one, and who do you want to share that moment with? Who do you want to invite in? If you're acknowledging some tremendous work that's been done at your local food pantry or perhaps a homeless shelter, do you want to be able to bring people into that can perhaps make a contribution or demonstrate what they've accomplished? It's not, an event is not always about the spotlight being on you. It could be on someone else too. Is your audience going to involve past clients or potential clients or both? Maybe your event is about attracting agents if you're trying to grow a team or find referral partners, either locally or nationally or internationally. Think about, what that might look like. And also, do you have a niche in play? Is there something special that you're doing in your real estate business or in maybe another business that you have that could come into play here, where you might want to leverage sort of two birds with one stone, if you will, by bringing those components or those different businesses together? If you think of niche, do you work with military families or do you have a military background? Do you specialize in 55 and over communities and maybe sort of the wants and needs and sort of lifestyle pain points of the 55 and over community? Do you speak another language and maybe see an opportunity to bring education and knowledge to people that speak that language, that maybe English is not their first language, and you see that as being a barrier to somebody buying or selling a home? There's opportunity there for you to build out an event to serve a population. Okay, so think about your purpose, think about your audience. The third thing that I want you to think about is what your content would be. And there's two different ways that you can approach this. And this will depend a lot on your mindset, your comfort level, and it will change from event to event. Are you the content creator? If we pull from social media terminology, are you the person who's not just coming up with the topic, but then creating all the information, the outline of what will be covered, all of the materials that will go along with that? Or do you want to be more of a facilitator where you might bring in partners? So let's say, for example, you want to go into your local high school or private school and teach a class on home ownership. Maybe you're going to your local community college. And so to reach out to say that 18 to 20-year-old population, you might not want to go in just as a real estate agent, but you might want to bring in a financial planner. You might want to bring in a representative from the local bank that can talk about bank products and, money management and preparing for a down payment. So see how all of these things are related, knowing what your goal is, knowing who your audience will be, and then deciding whether this is something that you want to sort of spearhead with content or whether you want to pull in experts or resources, partners that you can lean on and sort of hand off with over the course of the event. Okay. And then as we really get into the brainstorming, the last thing that you want to maybe challenge yourself on a little bit, because these are important, think about what your budget might be for an event and what your available time is. This can happen. You can take a look at these first two things, budget and time, either as a one-off component with whatever your first event or the current event on tap will look like, or you can think about that long term, maybe more in the broader scope of, say, a business plan. Maybe your goal is to build in an event every month. So you have something planned every month on your calendar that's going to get you in front of people, give you at bats, give you opportunities to have conversations, to share your knowledge and your expertise, to offer your services and ask for referrals. So maybe if you're planning out the whole year, and you'll see what we're talking about when we talk about events, but maybe some months you'll do sort of full blown, maybe pay for a restaurant or pay a local fee to the library to be able to reserve a room. Maybe other months you'll be looking to keep that cost down. But overall, think about budget and think about time. If a once a month event is not practical for you, or maybe again, if you go back to the point of I haven't really done this before and I'm not sure how it's going to go, let me just take the first one. Then just plan out the time for the first one. Okay. The other thing too is recognize what resources you have available to you. And by those resources, I could mean everything from physical space that's available to you, experts in different fields that are available to you that you might pull in, the ability to print and prep your resources, your materials for your event. That's important, knowing what's available to you. So think about all of that as we go through and you come up with a draft of what your next event is going to look like. And the last thing, acknowledge it now, your mindset. If this is something that you would enjoy, wouldn't enjoy, fear, or maybe just don't have an interest in, what are some of the mindset barriers that you might want to address now as you begin the brainstorming process to get them out of the way so that you can really concentrate on the positive, optimistic, successful event that you're going to have. Okay. So let's take a look. When I say event, hosting a successful event, I'm going to tell you that if you're just starting off, then maybe what you need to do is recognize that there's ways to leverage events and platforms that are already organized. And then there's this whole other approach that if you have a vision in mind of something that you want to accomplish, you can build it from scratch. And it can be sort of your creation start to finish. If you are just taking that, dipping that toe in the water, I really encourage you to think about leveraging an established event or platform. And let's see what that might look like. Here's where I want you to sort of open your mind. There's no wrong answer to the possibilities here. What you're trying to do with leverage is use a resource to maximize your advantage, okay, to give you the greatest advantage. So if you're nervous about putting something together and having to identify your own venue, you're having invitees, how you're going to execute the invitations, having sufficient content, having good attendance. If all of those things are a little bit much for you at the start, then take a look at all of these options to leverage existing events, pre-organized events, where what you're doing is maybe renting a table or approaching the organizer saying, I have value to offer here. How can I participate? A lot of these places, it's just a matter of finding them online and registering. So we're in that sort of prime time now for fall festivals and holiday bazaars between now and the end of the year. I would certainly not recommend that you find something that's scheduled for a week from now, right? Because again, the whole idea is planning ahead and giving yourself the greatest opportunity to have success at the event. So unless you've got a lot of these ducks in a row already, you want to choose events that are sort of maybe out in the future, whether that's 2 to 3 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, or maybe even a couple of months out, depending on what your goals are and how much content you think you have at the ready and how much you need to develop. Think of all the places where you might have a hand or where you might participate privately in your life that you can now turn that into a business opportunity. Okay. I don't know if anyone's ever been to a senior expo or a bridal expo, but those are super easy to find online. festivals you can find in New Jersey. I think there are multiple websites that list every craft fair that's happening in the state of New Jersey between now and the end of the year. And I think there's easily at least 100 on the list when I just did a little bit of research for today. Are there things happening with your local house of worship or with any house of worship in your community that you can leverage that event, right? Are there things happening in your community where you can rent a table or offer a service that could make a difference? And again, as you're looking at these options, as you're doing some research, checking online to see what is coming up in your community, go back and think about, what are my goals? If your goal was to bring value and education, say, to the veterans community, then maybe you're going to reach out to the local veterans home or maybe the county level Veterans Affairs Department to find out what activities they have coming up. You have to pick up the phone, make some phone calls, right? Have some conversations to gauge interest, and don't let the first no stop you from moving on to the second one. Because again, you have to keep moving forward, keep taking action to get to the point where you can start to see this come together. I want to give you an idea. And I made sure that I didn't take more than 10 minutes. When I prepared for today, I took 10 minutes to check on the internet. And in 10 minutes, I looked a little bit. I spent 5 minutes searching Burlington County. And I spent 5 minutes checking Monmouth County. And right off the bat, found interesting, varied platforms and events already scheduled, organized by other people that could easily be something that a real estate agent that you could take your business to. So in Burlington County, you'll see I found a senior expo. Now, again, that just happened 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And you're not going to choose, say, the trunk or treat necessarily, unless you really thought it was something that you can organize in 2 to 3 days. But the idea is that these are readily identifiable events that if you find them further, far enough out, you should have more than sufficient time to plan. You want to get yourself out into the public, sitting behind your computer every day, relying strictly on social media or postcard marketing or word of mouth referrals when you're not putting yourself out there is not giving you the best opportunity to position yourself for what's going on in today's market. Okay. You have to be out there and visible if you can expect to ask people for their business, especially for those listings. Okay. So take a look. There's a great craft fair and Santa's workshop coming up in December and a huge wedding expo. I think that was at Citizens Bank Park in February. So again, in 5 minutes time, I found those cool things. So you need to find something that could be meaningful to you, interesting to you, fun. If you love antiques, look for antique fairs and see if there's a way that you can incorporate a real estate table into an antique fair. Okay. And there are certainly ways to do it. Just think outside the box. And there's no wrong answer. If somebody, gave you that permission to say there's no bad idea and no wrong answer, just let your brain go. Same thing in Monmouth County. I wanted to be able to demonstrate that I wasn't just having more success in Burlington County because that's my neck of the woods. And I, again, in 5 minutes or less, found 5 cool events happening in Monmouth County in the month of November. Everything from recognizing small businesses. So imagine having an opportunity, you as a small business, being able to participate in the Spring Lake, if that's an area that's important to you. Going back to veterans, if veterans is a niche for you, there's a Veterans Day concert. How can you get involved? How can you serve a community that's particularly meaningful to you? And hopefully get some business and referrals. Okay. So again, the internet is a tool. And if you need some inspiration and want to leverage an existing event, there's a ton out there. Okay. Keeping on that theme of leveraging an existing event or a platform, make sure that you're thinking through. Don't just show up. Don't just find the registration link, maybe pay the $50 or $100 table fee and just expect to show up. You really want to think about what your goal is for that day and plan ahead. So know when you register or make the phone call, pick up the phone and call to find out what the venue looks like, what the space looks like. Do you receive a table? Do you need to bring a table? Depends on the type of event that you're attending. Will you have any table at all? Will you be identified as a sponsor? What type of materials can and should you bring with you? If it's an event that's about, maybe it's a fall festival. So maybe you want to sort of incorporate the fall theme into your marketing materials or your brochures. If it's a senior expo, then maybe you want to tailor all of your marketing materials or your flyers to what's happening with, the 55 and over community. What's some recent market information might relate to, say, resales on 55 and over homes. Helping seniors identify sort of exit strategies if they're looking to leave the home that they're in and further downsize, possibly even renting. Maybe you're working with a state community. So again, just understanding the venue, who your audience will help you tailor your materials in advance. Be prepared. Have your talking points in mind. Not that you should have a script. I really am leery of the word script because sometimes I feel like we're so stressed about knowing exactly what to say that we just forget to have a good old-fashioned conversation and just talk. And along with talking, listening. So, understand why you're there and what you hope your broad message will be. But again, it's about having conversations and getting in front of people. Everything about that day and that event should tie back to your brand. Branding is super important when you're out in the public. So if you have a certain look and feel with, say, your business card, your signs, your social media posts, make sure that branding, that look and feel carry through consistently with how you dress, what your materials look like the day of your event, so that, again, what you're trying to do is create familiarity and relationship from different angles. So if people have seen you or recognize you from some of the things that you're doing, say, on Facebook, and then meet you in person, you want it to make it as easy as possible for them to make that connection, okay? And to see and know that it's you. As you're planning to leverage these events, don't forget that you want some sort of interaction at the event. And you also want to make sure, I call it a call to follow up. So if you're sending out postcards, you'll always hear people say, make sure there's a call to action. In other words, you don't just want the postcard to show up in somebody's mailbox. You want something on the postcard to motivate the recipient to some action, whether they register on your site or request a copy of a free checklist or information sheet or home valuation. You want to engage the recipient. This is the same idea with an event. You not only want the opportunity to interact and to sort of register someone or bring someone into your circle at the event, but you want to make sure there's an opportunity to follow up, a call to follow up after the event. So again, depending on the event itself, that could be, scheduling a one-on-one consultation. It could just be a thank you, making sure that you are following up after the event to thank them and say how great it was to meet them. If you promise information or an answer to a question at the event, make sure that you follow up and deliver on that. Because again, it goes back to the full experience, the impression that someone has of you, and not overlooking the opportunity to have that conversation continue moving forward. Consider giving something away for free. Let's face it, free is a big thing in the world today. It always has been. The perception of freebies, even if you don't need them. Some of us have more chip clips than we know what to do with, but we still go after the chip clips at the next event nonetheless. So what is that about? People just enjoy free things. So whether you're giving away, whether it's flyers or brochures, whether you're doing, shopping bags at event, chip clips or pens, just be creative in what you can do, what you might do in offering something for free. Even if your free thing ends up being, if you register today, let me give you my business card. If you scan this QR code or here's this flyer. If you scan this QR code and you register, I'm going to send you a great checklist for, organizing your holiday shopping. And that's something that will just take you a little bit of time and energy to prepare. You need a place to print it, but you don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on giveaway items, but build in something for free. Okay. And then last, make sure that you're getting the word out. You have a great opportunity when you are leveraging an existing event that you don't have to be the sole sort of messenger about that upcoming activity or event, but don't be quiet about it either. Don't just show up, be excited about it and share with the people that you know that you will be attending the event, share information the day of the event. And then afterward, follow up and share information about the result or the outcome or the experience on the back end. Okay. So you're leveraging all of that great, say you're going to the senior expo or the bridal expo, you're relying on the organizers of the expo to be able to draw in the brides, draw in the mothers of the bride, the bridesmaids, the full bridal party. You're counting on them. Don't just stop there. Let people know what you're doing in your community to participate in the happenings around town and to get business. Okay. Are there any questions or thoughts about leveraging an event? Has anyone tried to do this, struggled to do this, had success with this? And maybe if you have a story where you've sort of had to think outside the box. So everybody here is on their first event. Oh, here, Shatali, I sponsor a Diwali party in my town. That's fantastic. And you offer design services. That's wonderful. And can I ask a question? When you started that event, how many people did you have the first time that you hosted it?
So it was just not me who was hosting. It was the Homedale Indian Association.
Okay.
But the first time around, it was 350 people came in, and I was the first sponsor. So that also drew in more sponsors. And so again, this year it was like given that Chitali will be designing or decorating everything. So yeah, but at least people were able to, in the party, I was able to interact with everyone, and they were able to put a face to my postcard. Like they get my postcard, now they were able to put a face to it.
That's a beautiful example of how you can leverage sort of a big name organization in your community and something that has personal affiliation and meaning to you to do good in your community and to benefit and promote your business. Don't stress if your first event isn't going to have 350 people like Shatali, but I think she's got the perfect example there of how she identified an opportunity and took advantage of it. And now she's sort of the grandfathered or, the founding sponsor, if you will, and help to set the stage for the success of future events going forward. So how cool is that for you? I love that, Shatali. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas, or maybe where you've hit a brick wall when it comes to leveraging an existing venue or platform? Everybody's quiet. Okay, so here's the deal. When we hang up from today's Zoom, your charge is to go and spend 15 minutes on the internet to identify at least 5 or 10 different events in the next, 6 months that would be of interest to you, that could have meaning to you, that you feel like you could easily incorporate somehow into your business. Okay. And again, it's something that if you're thinking more broadly about what your business goals are for 2024, what you want to accomplish in real estate, understanding what your sort of mission statement of your business is, if you will, find events that align well with that and also give you a comfortable place. If you love animals, then going to an event around animals is going to help take that edge off and make conversation flow a lot easier because you're talking about something that you love. So keep all of that in mind.
Diana?
Yes. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing?
Good. You just gave me a nice idea. So both of my daughters, they volunteer at the Milltown squad. And I am thinking about like finding myself a Santa and just photo with Santa, maybe with a little bit of donuts and bagel before
Yep,
Christmas. Maybe that would be a nice one.
absolutely.
And I
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
and I have a good relationship with this young man. He takes the best photos of my listings, but he can also take photos of people.
That's great. That's a great. And so again, what are the things that you're doing there? You're leveraging relationships that you already have in your life through the activities that your girls are participating in. You have the ability to leverage the partnership of a vendor that you're already working with. You're giving value in the current moment, doing something interactive with the idea that you have. And then the consumer who's participating in the event is going to walk away with something referencing that event to remember. So in this case, their picture with Santa. So
Okay.
when you're planning, when you're at the beginning of that, make sure that that picture either, gets posted on a postcard paper, or maybe you invest in some of those sort of small, like you get the photos at the mall. Maybe you invest in some of those, or maybe you have the photo printed on branded paper, something that has your name on it. Um,
Ah, like a
you
frame,
know,
like a paper frame that
like a
says my
paper
name.
frame. Hmm.
Oh wow, I wonder
Or
where can I get those? I wonder.
I think there are so many places that you can go online. The other thing that you can do, let's say that maybe you and two or three other agents are working together and you love the idea of doing some type of holiday photo, but maybe you don't have that go-to vendor like Sarah has, but maybe you all want to chip in $50 or $100 to get one of those they do it a lot differently now. In when I was a child growing up, photo booth was that big clunky thing that sat outside the movie theater, and you and your girlfriends all crowded in to get your picture, to everybody get their faces in at one time. Now
We
a
still
photo
do
booth
it.
is like
We still do it.
so those still exist.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
Now they have, I was just at a party recently where they had the photo booth wasn't a booth at all. It was literally just a corner of the venue that had a backdrop,
Yes.
and the camera was like maybe about as big as an Amazon box, a small Amazon box that comes to your house, and you picked your props and you got your picture. But when the picture printed, there was a section at the bottom. So maybe for the size of every thumbnail picture, there was a spot at the bottom that had branding. In this case, it was branding to the birthday party that I attended, but it could easily be your branding. It could be your name and information. So think about how you're going to build your marketing into that component too, so people walk away remembering you. Okay. So
Smart.
I think that's terrific. So just the idea that right away, as you're hearing some of these things and stepping back and reflecting on people that you know, people that you interact with, and places where you live life every day, how can you make those places business opportunities? How can you deliver service or value or knowledge to those communities that you care about, and promote your business and turn it into an income generating activity at the same time? So good for you.
Thank you so much, Diana.
Thank you. Any other sort of thoughts or ideas, things that you've tried? Again, I'm happy to hear about things that are working and not working. Oh, great. Jim, if you have a spot that you want to buy, that you want to suggest for paper frames, that's awesome. An iPad photo booth, that's really cool too. So there's a lot of interesting things that you can do at different price points. That's, I think, a big part of this, is recognizing, as long as you know what your budget is and you're willing to be creative, there are things that you can do in the event hosting space to accommodate any budget. The importance of knowing a budget is not to make you feel good or bad about how much money you want to spend. It's about keeping you in line, that you don't want to promise yourself you're going to spend no more than 200. And then after the event, you're like, oh, geez, I went, 5 times over budget. Okay. You want to have a certain level of discipline, especially because if you enjoy success and you want to be able to replicate it, You don't want it to continue to be a taxing exercise, right? Set the expectation and then work within those parameters that are reasonable for you. So this is all like, how do I leverage? If I'm going to stick my toe in the water, then okay, when we're done here, I'm going to go search the internet. I'm going to find some events. I'm going to find things that are happening in my community. And I am going to start making phone calls until I get to the point where I find something that could be a good match. Okay.
Diana,
Yes.
I'm so sorry to cut you off,
Yeah.
but what about partnering up with a vendor, like a lender or an attorney that I always use, you know?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I'm going to talk a little bit more about now that we're sort of going to shift gears. If you don't want to leverage an existing event, maybe if you want to build something from scratch, I think that's a really great idea. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Working with a vendor could be something like a partner, just to Sarah's point, if it's a loan officer, if it's an attorney, we mentioned financial planner earlier. You should have a lot of vendors and partners in your toolbox that could assist your clients in a variety of ways. So depending on the type of event or audience that you're looking to attract, bringing them in can be a huge win for you and for the attendees at your event. Okay. So as you're thinking about who your audience is and you're making phone calls to people about what venues you might leverage, also think about who might be interested in partnering with you. Make the phone calls. Make sure too that what you're doing is sort of complementing each other, not stepping on each other's toes. What do I mean by that? If you are, in a real estate seminar, and if I could just remind everybody to mute, if you're in a real estate seminar and you are trying to talk about how people can enter the market as a home buyer or home seller, and then you have a financial planner come in who's telling everybody that they should sit tight and do nothing, that's kind of people are going to be sitting there sort of scratching their heads. So you want to make sure that your goals, it could happen. But if you don't have the conversations and plan ahead of time, it could absolutely happen. So in the beginning stages, when you're building out what you might want your event to look like, make those phone calls early about who might want to partner with you and ask them up front, what would your budget be? This is what my budget would be. This is what would your financial budget look like? And how can we make this a really successful event together? That's another way too, if this is a little bit uncertain to you, unfamiliar territory, bringing someone in that you can sort of, partner in, like sort of trade off, that you're not carrying the conversation for the full event, can be a huge sigh of relief for you. As you're developing the content and sort of the partners that you might want to work with, also think about, do you want to be able to provide refreshments? That'll depend a lot on the venue that you're using too, whether refreshments make sense or not. They won't always, there we go. It will sometimes be worthwhile to maybe have bottled water or, bagged cookies, for example, or other times the venue or location, it might not make sense. Maybe you're very much into the outdoors and love to hike, and you somehow want to incorporate, going on a hike and then maybe just having an open conversation. And maybe that might be from a couple of different places. Maybe it's about, you're bringing in community advocates. So let's say, for example, you have a park in your hometown that has some beautiful walking trails. And so maybe you find 2 or 3 other community partners, not necessarily in real estate, but that are doing some really cool small business things in that town. Maybe you organize a hike or a walk for a certain day and time. And this is something that you can probably do almost like on a recurring basis, like maybe say the first Saturday of the month or something. And you go for your hike, and then maybe you offer bottled water and I don't know, maybe something else. I think bottled water would be great because it goes in line with hiking. So you don't necessarily need to have food, but maybe everybody sits and talks for 20 minutes, as you cool down after the hike, and just hears about what one of those cool small business people is doing in the community. So there's so many things that you can do if you just allow yourself to be creative in how you approach it. Remember, just as if you were leveraging an existing event, you want to make sure that you have ways to interact during the event and that there's some call to follow up, that you have some mechanism for follow up to keep the conversation going after the event. So when I say interaction at the event, make sure that you pause and ask for questions. Just like we're talking today in our training, it's important that it be interactive, that people feel the opportunity to share, to ask their questions if something's not clear. It shouldn't just be them sitting for 60 minutes, staring and not having feeling like it's a two-way street. Okay. Interaction helps the event feel more memorable in the moment. And then the follow-up is what keeps the conversation going. And again, free is key. Find something that you can do to build in for free, whether that's a pamphlet, a checklist, evaluation, a consultation, whatever you can creatively come up with that's free to the consumer, to the attendee, build that into your platform. So let's talk about, again, get your mind there. Start thinking about what are some of the places that I might leverage if I wanted to have an event from scratch. I need to find a place that I can utilize to hold my event, whether it's just a social event, whether it's, again, if I wanted to show appreciation or offer some sort of service to my community. I know somebody here in our office used to use our location regularly to do a big shred event once a year. And my particular office is pretty conducive to that because it's got an in driveway and an out driveway. So people would come in, drop off their shred and leave. So that would, in my mind, in what we're talking about today, absolutely qualify as an event. You're sort of mishmashing client appreciation with a community service, with marketing and publicizing yourself and keeping your business, your real estate work top of mind. Okay. So your own office space could absolutely be a possible venue. Do you have a local house of worship, your local library? Maybe the development that you live in has a clubhouse that can be rented or reserved. I mentioned if you were going on a hike that a lot of parks have sort of pavilions or picnic areas that you can leverage for the type of event that you want to hold. Maybe you want to go something sort of more, I hate to use the word upscale, but maybe you want to go with something that has more of a formal feel, and a restaurant might make sense. If you wanted to do something special with client appreciation, maybe you wanted to take your, top 5 clients for the year out to a special brunch or lunch, then maybe restaurant might be the event venue that makes sense for you. Okay. The idea here is that don't just think of the obvious, be creative, and do not be discouraged by the number of places that tell you, I'm sorry, we can't accommodate something like that. If you make enough calls, you will get to a yes. But if you stop at the first call, you will never enjoy that success. You'll never get to that moment. Okay. Also, as you're planning your event, you want to make sure that you're giving ample time and consideration to how you're going to invite people. And there are a number of ways that you can do this. I encourage you to think about choosing multiple platforms that don't just rely on one way. But again, this is going to depend in large part on what your event is, who you're trying to invite, and even going back to venue, remember that online can be a venue too. Maybe you want to be able to host a weekly Zoom, just like this, where you can open up to questions, answer people's concerns, address them about what's happening in real estate. How do I understand what the market looks like? What do I do about an 8% interest rate? Maybe every week you host a different person from your community. These are all events that are engaging the public in a meaningful way, that are hopefully helping you stay top of mind. Okay. So how do you invite people to your event? You can certainly leverage email, text message very easily. You can even use, if you're in KV Core or another CRM, there is an event template you can find under the marketing templates in KV Core. Just search event, And there's an actual template that you can build out where you just put in all your particulars of your event and you can send it out to anybody in your database that you identify. If you're having an event, let's say we go back to that local housing community that has a clubhouse that you can rent or reserve. Maybe you plan ahead, print the door hangers, and you plan door knocking in that community in the weeks leading up to the event to get the word out, to get the message out about that event. Okay. And there should be, if you're doing that, there should absolutely be a call to action on that door hanger that gets people to register for the event. It should be follow in line with your branding, right? Be consistent with all the other things that you're doing to brand yourself and your business. And it should also be attractive in the sense that it conveys effectively what the event is about and gets people interested and curious about the event itself. And then there has to be a way where they can take that information and register their attendance. So whether you're using some kind of QR code or email registration platform, or maybe you have something like, say, for example, a Jot form link. If you're into online forms, maybe you have a Google form that you create that you can use, that you can convert into a QR code, but make sure you have a way to get people to register. Okay. There are also some really cool platforms like Evite. Evite is a very easy and for the most part, for what you might need, at least initially, free to be able to reach a certain population of people. If you wanted to upgrade and spend the money on a subscription, you could, but you don't have to. And you can get the word out about your invitation that way. What I like about Evite is that if you're not super comfortable with technology, it's going to give you that sort of whole RSVP, register for the event component built in. All you have to worry about is taking one of their templates, building out your draft of your event, and getting it sent out to your invitees' email addresses. Okay. Maybe you're going to send word about your event through postcards or a letter in the mail. Again, that needs to be planned ahead, and you need to allow time for printing and delivery in the mail, and then ample time for people to plan that event into their schedules and RSVP. Okay, so this is not something that if you're building an event from scratch that you want to just do off the cuff. Plan ahead. Do a lot of social media sharing. So don't just stop at what you're doing with Evite or behind the scenes with your door hangers. Make sure that you're getting the word out through social media channels of what you're doing in your local community as well. And then the last thing I would say about invitations is don't just have a mechanism for registering people for the event. Make sure that you build in a way to remind them about the event too. There's always that thought process that you feel like you work hard to get the word out there. And then the day of, you wake up and say, oh my gosh, I'm certain no one's going to show up today. So build in reminders that are effective into your planning. Okay. As you get closer to your event, do some of the easy check boxes of just making sure that you reserve your venue and then confirm your venue. Plan your refreshments and then either go out and buy or confirm orders for your refreshments. Get all of those pieces in place. Don't wait until the last minute. It only grows your stress and anxiety. And it can put you in a bind when you're short on time and energy on the day of or the day before your event. If you want to work with partners, to the exact point, when Sarah mentioned, let me bring in a loan officer or an attorney, for example, don't wait until the last minute going into your Zoom or into your in-person event to decide what your content is going to be. Talk about that in advance. Agree on what your overall messaging would be and on what pieces you'll address and what pieces your partners will address. Okay. And it doesn't have to be all real estate related. There's someone on my team, for example, who I'll mention because I think she's got a really great perspective. She's got multiple businesses. And what do the multiple businesses have in common? Sort of personal wellness and overall sort of house is home kind of mindset. She can bring in partners that aren't specifically real estate sort of all speak to that house is home concept. How to be at home in your body, how to be at home in your mindset, how to buy your first home. So you can see how coming up with your theme and understanding what your goal is in your event will help to frame out what venue would make sense, what partners would make sense, what is the content, what are the things of value that we want to share with the people who are going to take time out to attend the event. Be ahead on your marketing. That's really important, as I've continued to emphasize. Branding, you and your business should be consistent with everything else that you're doing in real estate. And if you have access to resources like, table banners, or if you have like retractable signs or flags, make sure that you're getting all of those ahead of time. Don't wait until the day of your event to realize that you're short on business cards. Be up on those things in advance. Okay. And then on the day of your event, do not stress about being perfect. Any event that you have, remember, is a successful event. Not everything will go perfectly as planned or desired. That doesn't even exist. Anybody who has ever gotten married, I think, can attest to that, right? That you try to plan this perfect wedding day and bring all these pieces together, and inevitably something will fall short of what all of that planning had in mind. But at the end of the day, don't let that detract from the overall success and enjoyment that you experience from your event, because you're doing it, because you're out there meeting people. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important. Okay. Day of, make sure that you build in the time not to run and grab the bottles of water, not to go out and buy your new suit. Okay, those are not the things you do the day of your event. The day of your event, you're reviewing your game plan, taking a deep breath, reminding yourself of the flow, the outline, how things will go, and then just stay on top of it and stay in the moment. Keep focused on your goal. And as long as you, I think, keep that goal in the back of your mind, it'll help you to be present in the conversation and not be distracted by other things that may or may not be going right or wrong in the background. I can give you a perfect example, and there are a couple on this call right now who were there that day. We had a fantastic team event for my team, a team building event about not quite 2 weeks ago. Did all the work ahead of time, planned out the event, thought it was a good venue. The business planning event, we wanted something off-site where we could eliminate distractions, felt like it was a professional space, had some cool things going. And then, of course, the day that we get there, after putting in all this planning, they're doing construction on the room next door. And when I tell you how many times I thought that the drill was going to come through the wall behind me, and we certainly addressed it with the venue and, did the best we could in the moment and after the fact. But at the end of the day, we couldn't let that bring the event to a standstill and stop it in its tracks. At the end of the day, it was I think, a very successful event that our goal was achieved and started the conversation about the importance of a business plan. And now I can look back and laugh a little bit. After I dealt with the venue after the fact, the first couple of days, now I can look back and sort of laugh about it a little bit. But the idea is, do not let concern over perfection stop you from taking this first step in planning an event. Just get after it. And then the last thing that I just want to leave you with is make sure when you plan that you give yourself the opportunity in the moment to get feedback. So if you're at an event, if you're hosting an event, ask for opinions, ask for people to evaluate. Did what we promised, sort of meet your expectations? Did you enjoy this speaker? Did you enjoy that speaker? How would you rate the venue? How would you rate the materials? What would you like to learn more about? Would you attend another session? Would you refer a session? Are you selling your home in the next 12 months, right? There's so much opportunity when you have somebody in front of you to collect information. Don't miss that opportunity. Don't let that pass you by. And you can do that in a number of ways too. You can do that with physical feedback forms. You can create a Google form for feedback and tie it to a QR code that people can scan on their way out to give you that feedback, but when they're in the room, when they're in front of you, that's the greatest chance that you have for success to gather that feedback. Okay. And then follow up again, whatever promises you made in the moment, whatever questions you had to sort of pause on to get answered. If you promised something, a resource or a connection, a vendor name, whatever the case may be, make sure you're following up on those things. And then every single person that attended should hear from you with a thank you for taking the time to attend, and perhaps again, drafting that message on how you can continue the conversation. So if you were, a sponsor at an event for your local rec council or senior community or veterans group, what can you do in a follow-up to not only say, thank you for attending, but here are some additional resources, or here is our next, event date and time, and this is going to be our topic. You could easily, if you wanted to be very specialized in the niche that you serve, come up with a venue that you go to once a month, every month, and then just create topics that are meaningful to the community you're trying to reach every single month. So be open-minded. I hope that you've given that some thought on how this might look, how an event might look in your world, in your real estate business. Sarah, do you have an idea or a thought?
I don't want to cut you off, but I did write 3 comments about everything you said.
Perfect.
Yes. So the first one, it's about how you said, like, if the place does not cater or offers any refreshment and you're gonna buy some, I think it's a great idea to go to one of those moms and pops, maybe pizza place or sandwich place, and get it from there and tag them, and let people know that you're actually in the area supporting like a very local business, and that business will actually support you by you catering from them.
Absolutely. Or even let's say that you didn't necessarily, maybe that gave you a little bit too much anxiety, like having to coordinate the food delivery and so forth. So maybe you just contract with a food truck. They're like, listen, I have this event. It's going to be from, 5 to 6 or 6 to 7. And I would love for you and your food truck to come to the venue 6:45 to 7:30 and park. Maybe it's an ice cream vendor, or maybe it's a cookie vendor or a meatball vendor, whatever the case may be. But again, I love that idea. I love that idea. Leveraging what's available in your community. And finding partners that make sense. Not always going to be in real estate. In that case, a small business partner, maybe going back to the point where I said about having the idea of feeling at home in your body, feeling at home in your clothes, finding your at home. Maybe the person that comes there, maybe you have a beauty consultant, maybe you have a stylist that just sort of helps people with makeup tips, or maybe the venue that you have an event like that is a small boutique in your town. So here and that's just us sitting, talking and brainstorming about how an idea might evolve in things that make sense to you, your branding, your business, your passions, and so forth. So, okay, that's a really good one, Sarah. What's your next one?
Thank you. So the second one, how don't stop at send an invite, but also post about the event online. I think tag in your team and have them repost it. And especially like us, we're on a Zoom every Tuesday and Wednesday, and we have all these agents that we don't really know in person, but we kind of like develop this really warm relationship with them just being on a Zoom together, know. So we can tag them and they can repost it, and it'll get exposed to more people to attend.
Absolutely. And I love the idea too of not just leveraging these relationships amongst one another to get the word out, but why not leverage these relationships to partner with agents on the event itself? That you could be in different markets doing different things, but maybe you share a sort of a common passion. Maybe you are both Jewish and you want to support the Jewish community, your local Jewish communities. So you create an event to support more broadly and deliver value back. Maybe it's a charity fundraiser where you're giving certain value and information, but also supporting your local Jewish synagogues, right? So there are things that you can do with the people all in this group, not just to get the word out, but to sort of share in the anxiety a little bit of trying to get going with events. So that's great. That's a really good one. I love that, Sarah. And how about
Thank
your
you.
last one?
My last one is leveraging the relationship with your leaders. I think it's such a great idea. Like if you're nervous and you're trying to host an event, and this event may be a first home buyer, right? And call the title company, have Diana come and speak, give her the stage, and have people ask her questions. She can explain title, it's great.
Absolutely. And what I think the best thing that comes out of that comment, Sarah, is that what I'm saying to you now as we talk about all of this, and I tell you go back and do some brainstorming, once you leave this Zoom today, and maybe you do get some ideas flowing, don't think that you're alone on an island having to do it. Go and talk with your team leader. Go and sit with agents that you've worked with on your team. Have a Zoom or have a phone call and say, hey, I was thinking about this idea. What do you think of that? How would you receive that? Sometimes just bouncing ideas off of another person who has maybe a greater, maybe bird's eye view or isn't as engrossed in the details can help really jumpstart that brainstorming process and give you thoughts and ideas and direction that you didn't even consider before. And absolutely, you would be amazed how many people will step up and say, yes, I would love to participate in your event, Sarah. That would be wonderful. Tell me how I can be a part. You need to make the calls. You need to ask the question. Don't be discouraged by the no's because you will get to a yes. You absolutely will get to a yes. So I think that's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, good. Does anybody else have any ideas? Has anybody written anything on their paper that they're going to follow up on and do some research on and hopefully start to plan an event maybe going into 2024? Okay, well, maybe you have a jumble of notes right now, but I'm hoping that you at least have something on paper. So your challenge leaving today is to take at least 15 minutes to go and do some research online. And then I want you to make at least 5 to 10 phone calls to people to either bounce ideas off of them, invite them to build an event with you together, invite them to attend and host a table at a pre-existing event together, but take some action. Get yourself out there in the public, shake some hands, let people come to recognize you and know you in the community that you serve so that you get business and benefit down the road. Okay. Don't just sit behind the laptop or the postcard. Get out there and let people know that you're real and ready to help. Okay. That would be my best message. Lorna, thanks for your question. I can make the PowerPoint available if you just drop your email in the chat and you want to get the PowerPoint. I will be happy to send that out to you through email. And then I will stick the recording on our YouTube channel. And if you'll give me 30 seconds, I can grab the YouTube channel link. What you might want to do is save this link and then bookmark it, and then subscribe to it. Because once you subscribe, you should get notifications anytime a new video posts. And that usually takes maybe 24 hours. So this time tomorrow, you should see the video on the YouTube channel. Okay, I'm just going to get that link. Go. Stick it in the chat. Okay, there's the YouTube link. So again, the video will be there tomorrow. I'll have the PowerPoint out to you if you dropped your email in the chat. And I hope you go and do some event planning and then come back and share with me because I would love to promote those success stories amongst our group. So thank you, everybody. Get motivated and go plan some events.
Thank you so much, Diana. You're so amazing.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. I always appreciate you. Always appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you. Don't forget the regional rally on November 6th.
I bought my
So-
ticket yesterday. The minute I
Very
found
good.
out you're going, I said, that's it. I have to go because I have not met you in person yet.
And it's been a long time coming, and I think that's going to be a great event, and I think we're going to have a decent showing. And so I encourage you to continue to spread the word. And I need to do that even a little bit more too. I've kind of been sharing it with Jean and Christian and with my team, but we need to do more to get the word out. So I will see you on November 6th. And thank you so
November
much,
6th.
everybody.
Bye
All
bye.
right. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.